And so I am here to introduce our author. She is direct from Broadway, where she's starring in Waitress, currently on stage at the Ethel Barrymore Theater. She's formerly the lead singer of Sugarland. Ladies and gentlemen, Nashville's own and Athens' own Jennifer Nettles. I'm completely kidding. I told her I was going to do that. She's probably going to kill me, but she has to come on screen to do that. So ladies and gentlemen, instead, allow me to present my friend and hopefully good sport who won't kill me, Jessica Nettles. As soon as she comes on screen, oh gosh. Oh no.
No, I'm not going to kill you. Not yet.
Well, now that I have you on screen, do you mind if I read your actual bio, since I warned you that I was going to call you by the wrong name? I think it went over well.
It went over pretty well.
All right. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who do not know, Jessica Nettles grew up with one foot in the real world and the other in a world mixed with dabs of spiritual belief, science fiction, and fantasy dreams, and spooky experiences that she nor her family could quite explain. But I'm gonna make her do it tonight. At age 11, she found the perfect outlet for this bizarre childhood in the form of writing. Her influences range from Ray Bradbury to Flannery O'Connor to Shirley Jackson. Really Shirley Jackson. Big ups to Shirley Jackson. She reads as voraciously as she can while balancing her career as an English instructor and a writer of Southern Gothic and historical fantasy. She's on the board of the Broadleaf Writers Association in Atlanta and is a member of the Horror Writers Association Atlanta. Represent, y'all. Everybody in the comments, please somebody say something. We love you all. And she resides with two Black familiars, Ninja and Luna, in a 1960s ranch house just north of Atlanta. Her new novel, which you all should go out and get, is Children of Menlo Park, which we're going to be discussing this evening. And I first found out about this book over 2 years ago. She was the first of my friends to get a book deal that I know of, and I don't know if John Edcox is here to yell at me about that or not, but either way, we're just going to say you're my first friend to get a book deal. And I have now talked too much.
That's okay.
So let me just say to you, welcome, Jessica. Thank you for including us all on this adventure, and we're so grateful to have you with us.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm really kind of stoked about this whole thing. So, and getting to hang out with you for a little while and seeing everybody out there. Hey, everybody, by the way, all my HWA peeps, I love you. All right. So what are we going to talk about, man?
All right, first of all, let me tell people that if they have any questions that they find me not asking, go to the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen and fill it out. It will provide you with a space to type out your questions and such, and to go to Jessica for writing advice. And let me tell you guys, Jessica's really damn good at writing advice. She taught me how to write a novel. And my novel is directly the result of tools that she gave me.
And his novel impacted.
Nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. No. This is all about you.
I'm excited for both.
This is all about you and your massive book.
It's not massive. I can't help it.
Comparatively, it is not. But here goes.
All right.
Let's start with the ghosts. Okay?
Okay.
Because I don't know and stand in perpetual envy of how your mind works. Because you have crafted and thrown us in almost from the jump into a world where the characters are ghosts. either spectral or they're shadow creatures with shadow abilities who are capable of traveling in non-linear time. It is sort of a gaslight steampunk style, but the world is all its own. I felt like I'd walked into a movie that I had no clue about and was just sort of thrown into cold water. It was delightful. So where did you start?
Oh man. Okay, so this is kind of complicated. So we've got time, so I'll go for the
It's fine.
complicated story. Um, it really starts back maybe about 10, 12 years ago, and my kids and I are gamers, and they're video gamers, but we also do tabletop gaming. I don't know if folks are familiar with this, particularly role playing, so Dungeons and Dragons, things like that. At that point in time, we were playing a game called Deadlands, which I don't know. I think if you're digging around, you can still find things for this. It is a Weird West type of game. And so
What do you mean Weird West?
Weird West. So that means that it's Western stories with ghosts and monsters and crazy stuff, kind of like my book. And so I created this I had this idea for a game for them that involved Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla, because I've always thought their conflict was kind of interesting. And I threw in some ghostly elements at that point. And at that point, though, Kate and Shadow were not a part of this. Okay, so we had that story going, and it kind of petered off, and I didn't do anything with it. And then 2015, I had a friend, I was casting around for stories for ideas for something I was working on for a short story. And somebody suggested the song 13. We'll probably come back to that. By Johnny Cash, and I listened to the lyrics, and I saw this little girl standing in a prairie watching a house burn down, and I knew in my heart she had started that fire, and I was watching her look at this house burning down that she caught on fire on purpose, and I wanted to know why. And then I needed some detectives, and then I began to connect the two stories together, and I'm like, well, maybe they happened at the same time for the same reason, or for connected reasons. And then I had to find detectives, and then suddenly I discovered Kate Warren, who's a real person, by the way.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Talk about what the real Kate Warren did, like in terms of the thing that you mentioned in the book that I know is massive, like her one of many claims to fame. This is perhaps her biggest one.
This is the biggest claim to fame, and some histories talk about it more than others. Kate was a Lady Pinkerton. She was the first Lady Pinkerton, and she participated in saving Lincoln from a first assassination attempt, because there was one while he was campaigning during his first time campaigning for president. There was a lot of unrest that was going on in the country at the time, and there were folks that wanted to kill him. And so Alan Pinkerton found out that there was a plot, and he sent Kate to kind of guide Mr. Lincoln through a series of trains to avoid going directly into Washington. They had to go like around Washington to come back to Washington at a different station. And they did this for something like 72 hours, I think. She didn't sleep during that entire time as she moved him from train to train, pretending he was her brother and he was sick. But they got him to where he needed to go safely. And it was because of Kate. This is where we get the whole term, "we never sleep," that's connected to the Pinkertons, and is their tagline even now.
One of the things that I love about Kate in the book is that Kate, even though she has passed beyond the veil, and she's still having to confront like sexism and like preconceived notions about what she's capable of, and she bristles constantly against people who think that she's incapable. And that amount of spirit and that amount of emotion and those stakes, because for things I'll go into in a minute, those stakes still being there just ground the story in such humanity. In addition to the fact that it's wild, y'all. Like, there's a whole lot of action going on almost from the jump. And like, creatures are jumping out of pages and books and attacking people. But beyond that, like, who this woman is and what her powers are, and how she embraces both her femininity and then seeks to defy the constrictions that it places on her, is just really, really cool. And I got a sense of yourself in it. As
Yeah.
I'm reading it, I just hear your voice.
Oh, wow. That's great. I never know if I'm being heard or not, but I feel I put a lot of my own feelings about being female, and granted, it's a different time period now, right? We're a lot freer than they were then.
Yes.
But still, I think a lot of women, and especially women who are strong spirited like Kate, still push up against a lot of the same nonsense. And we have to make a decision about how do we want to respond? What do we want to do? Are we going to push back? And if we're going to push back, how are we going to do that and still retain who we are? And I kind of ended up exploring that with her a lot.
That's one thing that I've always known about your spirit, just in general, is that like, people underestimate you at their peril, and people tease you at their peril, because you've got power and darkness. It comes through in your words, it comes through in your history, and it comes through in the things that you enjoy. And as a result of that, it makes you just like formidable and thoroughly charming. And like, oh, come on. You kind of know that you're charming,
I
right?
kind
You're
of
wearing a
know.
crown right now.
Well, that's part of the Nettles thing, we're all charming.
Yes. And plus, when I met you, you took a water gun blast to the face, which,
Truth.
yes. I'm going to go into Pinkerton there for a little bit, because he also is a character, and you've created a very interesting romantic plot line going on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially, like, he's someone that she used to have feelings for, and she's decided to come back from the dead to work for him without thinking about necessarily how that might affect their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of touchy. And historically, there's some indication that they had something going on. And there's a lot of discussion about whether or not that was a real thing or not. So I'm at first I didn't want to lean into it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go there. And then I'm like, well, what if there was this thing, and what if she chose to come back because not because she was in love with him, because that would be the obvious choice, right? She came back because she loved him. And maybe on some level there was some love involved, but the real thing for her is the work. And this is something I picked up from reading about how she worked and reading things that indicated that she really wanted to be this detective. She's the one that went to him. She came to his office. There was an ad. She came to the office, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? She's like, I want to be a detective. And he's like, well, okay. And which is really forward thinking for a man of his time. But there was a real sense that she loved the work. It wasn't just, I'm just doing this for a paycheck. She really enjoyed the adventure of it and everything that it involved. And so when I discovered that she died when she was, I always get this wrong. She was 35, I think. She was very young. She died of
good
tuberculosis.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was very young. She died of tuberculosis. The story is that he sat at her bedside the entire time until she passed away. But she died very young. And I'd learned enough about her spirit, and maybe I'm like overlaying my own spirit as well over this. I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, if she, I bet you she was pissed that she died, because she's missing out on all this adventure. And then I'm like, what if she could come back? And that's kind of why she came back as a ghost, and why she chose to come back to do the work, because the work is essentially her thing. It's not the romance, it's the adventure, it's the work, it's doing all this stuff. So
it reminded me of a column that I told you about. Celestine Sibley, at one point, someone said to her that she would at one point be heaven bound, because they were trying to talk about what a nice person she was.
right.
And instead she wrote a column about how that seemed almost like a curse, because she asked if they had typewriters in heaven, because she didn't want to be bored hanging out with angels. She wanted something to do.
Oh, that sounds
And
no,
no, I know there's like people who have passion about things that like I kind of hope that my passions last beyond the rest of me. Like they're the things that I find the most joy in.
Right.
And based upon your career as a writer and as an author now, like I love that I met you when I did.
Oh, definitely.
I love that I met you the way that I did, because people would use the word in academia for like non-traditional student.
Right.
But essentially there is no timeline nor time limit on when we're allowed to start putting out books.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
So, and I've seen you talk about this before, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but how does it feel just every single day knowing that this book is out there and that people can go on Amazon and buy it, or go to your event on Saturday at Foxtail and get a signed copy of it? Is that Saturday at 1 p.m.?
It's at 1 p.m. We're going to have the doors open,
Yes.
and a box of books ready to go. I'm excited.
Yes.
I am still in the stage, because the book's been out, gosh, it's been out a month now. Wow.
I know, but it feels like brand new.
Yeah. It's surreal. I think I've used that word before with you about this. It's surreal. Yeah. It's like I wake up and it happened quickly. So I did my copy edits at the beginning, or I have to stop and think, at the end of September. I did the last of the copy edits. I did it in one day and sent it to my publisher, John Hartness, who is just enormously wonderful on so many levels.
Yes, so, John Hartness is fantastic.
He's the best. He's absolutely Paul Staff. Yeah. He's absolutely the best. And so I sent it back to him, because he was my editor too. And 15 minutes later, I get an email saying, "Hey, it's live." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're doing a pre-sale. It's on Kindle now." I'm like, I guess I need to promote. And I'm just like scrambling. I'm sitting here at the desk going, "Oh my God." And inside I'm going, "Ah," and trying to tell. I'm messaging my best friend Amanda going, "Oh my God, it's live." She's like, "What?" We're all freaking out, because I thought I had a little more time. and we were going to launch.
Right, you thought you had a strict launch date, and I saw that it wasn't
Yeah.
a strict launch date, and I'm like, wait a second, people are already buying this. And then
Yeah,
people
it was
started
crazy.
receiving it in the mail.
Yeah. So yeah, well, the paperbacks actually weren't supposed to launch until that strict launch date, and John like made a
It doesn't
mistake
matter now.
ordering some for himself for fall staff, and ended up leaving it on. And so we're just both like, I emailed him and I'm like, is this supposed to be happening? And he's like, yeah, probably not, but we're going to leave it. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So those of you that got books like extra early, you got lucky. You got really lucky. But honestly, the whole month has been just like, it's been surreal. And the first time I touched one of the paperbacks, one of my friends had gotten in that early order phase. And so I'd gone to her house and she put it in front of me, and I just like kind of sat there for a minute and just, I had to take my time because I was like, this is not real. I am going to wake up and I'm going to be in my bed, or I'm going to be in the shower or something. I'm going to wake up and this is not going to be real. And seriously, I go to Amazon more often than I should just to go look and see it. Look, it's there. Wow.
Oh, we all do that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm not crazy. Or I'll see somebody posting.
Well, I mean, you're not as crazy. I mean, you're only as crazy as the rest of us.
That's true. It's just, it's so weird. And I look over, it's like I've got a copy of it over there, along with the anthology that I was in earlier this year. And I look at both of them and I'm like, there's still a part of me that really doesn't believe it. And yet I know all the work I did paid off. This is the payoff. This is the payoff. And every once in a while I still tear up too. It's ridiculous, but it's like, this is so crazy and so exciting. And yeah, if you're thinking about doing this, do it. Don't wait.
Well, but here's the thing though. This is more than just the payoff. This is also just the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Because they intentionally put a number 1 next to your book. So we're going to get more Kate and Shadow. We are.
Oh, definitely we're going to get more Kate and Shadow.
And I am very curious what your first audience ever, i.e. Stuart and Maeve, your children, thought of this book as it came out and as it was developed. Like, when did they read it?
Well, Maeve has read it. She read it in some of the early stages. So she got to see some early stage stuff. And she actually, God bless her, and I talk about this in the acknowledgements, she had
The
to
book
deal.
is dedicated to them.
Yeah. My babies. She and I would go have sushi, because we do this sometimes. She'll call me and say, hey, you want to go to lunch? And we'll go have sushi. Of course, now our sushi place is gone, so that part of history is gone. But she would have to listen to me babble for an hour about what I was working on. And she and Stuart both are big fans. But she oftentimes will read drafts for me to make sure there are no holes in the plot line. She's my plot line hole lady. And so she read it early on. Stuart I think he's read bits of it. He's actually waiting for the hardback though. He hasn't read it all the way through. He's waiting for the hardback. He wants to buy the hardback. Now, probably I will give him a copy too, but he wants to buy one. And I'm like, well, okay, son, if that's what you want to do, honey,
Well, I like that he's being supportive, and I also like that he's trying to get you out of that PT Cruiser. But
oh, what's that about? My clown card, as he calls it. Yeah.
No. It's a delightful PT Cruiser, and I'm amazed that you can reach the pedals. And
okay, that's one short joke.
That's the only short joke I'm going to allow myself. All right. So, in addition to your children, let's talk now about your fictional children, starting with 13, as you mentioned, being based upon the Johnny Cash song. Now, 13 is the one who sets fire to the house at the beginning of the book.
That's right. Well, she's not at the beginning of the book. Well, sort of at the beginning of the book.
Like
she's
right before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So 13. So what do you want to know about the children exactly? Because I'm just babbling. So
no, I'm just wondering what what ties they have to Johnny Cash in particular. Is it just the
Okay.
one?
No, it's all of them. So I started with 13 because I heard this song, and hopefully Zach will put it in the link somewhere because it's really awesome.
He has.
Yeah,
Zach's
the
got us. He's good.
the lyrics are pretty amazing. It's a story of a person who bad luck basically follows. And the song warns people, don't get close to me, don't look at me in the eye, because I will bring you bad luck. It will not be good. And so she's based on that. And then I'm like, I've got 13 kids. By the way, not all 13 kids are in the book.
They were at one point.
They were at one point. We'll get there eventually, probably. But
there's still more to tell.
I sat down and I'm like, wouldn't it be interesting if I could connect all the children to a Johnny Cash song? And so I began researching on my own, and I think I put something on Facebook. Daryl can probably attest to this. Hey, Daryl.
Yes.
I put a request for Johnny Cash songs at one point on my Facebook page. I did this with a couple of things in the book. That's how I got the name of the airship too.
Yes.
And in fact, the person who named it actually got mentioned in the acknowledgments. But so each of the children, all 13 of the children, have a connection to a Johnny Cash song that connects to whatever power that child might have or impact on the world. Because these children are not just, they're not just kids, they're magical kids. And there's a reason why they're being chased or looked for. I'm not going to
get at the beginning. At the beginning of the book, I don't want to spoil anything, but can I say that at the beginning of the book, the Pinkertons have been hired by the world's greatest inventor, Thomas Edison, which
I have no feelings about it.
From Menlo Park, New Jersey. I wonder if he's connected in any way to this book, The Children of Menlo Park.
I think maybe so.
Yes. But along the way, we realize that he is connected to the children and trying to find them. But also, the other main character, the other protagonist, Shadow, who's able to travel along his timeline. Tell me how that works. Tell me how Shadow's abilities work and where that came from, and just about Shadow in general.
Okay,
they're a very interesting partnership.
Shadow's an interesting fellow. So I'm not going to give all it away, but he is part of something called Brotherhood. Yeah. And the Brotherhood is a group of individuals who, and this is hinted at, who were created before the colony, or just as the colonies were being built. Let's just put it, or maybe even pre-colony. And their job is basically to protect the colonies and protect the colonists a lot from themselves, really, if we're honest. Shadow's abilities, Shadow's abilities include accidental time travel, which he is not a thing that all of the Brotherhood can do. And this is part of where we start exploring things like the fragmenting of the Brotherhood. The Civil War really kind of fragmented a lot of things, including the Brotherhood.
Yes, it seemed like the Civil War kind of unlocked a whole lot of magical mischief into America just by the nature of the things that people were dabbling with in order to try and gain an advantage.
Yeah. My version of the Civil War is a little different than the actual, but I do use some historical stuff, and I do kind of fiddle around with it a lot because I can. That's the nature of the beast. But Shadow also does something called what I call walking the paths, and all of the Brotherhood does that. And the paths are simply, I envision it as kind of a series of places where they can, I call it stepping out. They step out and go onto the paths, and the paths are kind of between dimensions, if you will. And you can walk the paths and go from one place to another much quicker than a normal person like you or me could do. So for us, we would have to ride the airship like Kate rides the airship, right? But Shadow
Yes,
doesn't
I'm
have
gonna
to.
go into that.
Yeah. But Shadow doesn't have to do that. So it's not really time travel, it's walking the paths. But he does time travel, but he does it accidentally, and he's not even really sure how he does it. It's just he'll try to enter the past and he slips. Something inside of him trips and he goes off in time travel. Usually he's had it happen a couple of times before the book, and he usually travels backwards in time, which is how he helped with the finding out about the assassination plot against Lincoln. But
Yes.
in this book, he actually time travels forward. If
Oh,
that
it's
makes sense.
forward.
I think it's forward.
Oh,
Is it forward or
no,
backwards?
I didn't
Yeah.
know that yet. I think that
Yeah.
it might be.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll shut up then. I'll shut up.
No,
now.
no. Please, by
But
all
yeah,
means.
there's some
This is your
tricky,
event. You can talk about your book the way you want.
yeah, there's some tricky, weird stuff that goes on with him, and there's still some stuff that I'm still learning about him and the Brotherhood, and there's more to come. There's much more to come.
Yes, but as we spend time with him, we realize that the children are also connected in some way to Edison's greatest rival, the great and sadly underappreciated Nikola Tesla.
My heart. Yep.
And what caused you to bring in these historical figures that are particularly attractive into your story?
Mostly their conflict. I mean, initially when I did this as a storyline for a game, I was really into exploring this conflict between the two individuals, because they did have a historical conflict. Basically, Mr. Edison invited, at least if you read Tesla's autobiography, which I encourage you to do, he beautiful writer. He was invited to come to the United States because he was doing just crazy stuff with electricity, of course, on his own. And Edison offered him a place to come and work. What Edison did not tell him was that he was going to steal his stuff, which is something that Edison was known for. A lot of his ideas were taken from other people, including Mr.
Is it
Tesla.
just sort of like a while it's in my lab, it belongs to me sort of thing?
Kind of. I've got the face value. I've got the money. Fork it over, man. And then when Tesla, he ends up. One side of the story is that Edison fired Tesla. The other side of the story is that Tesla basically told him where to go and left. I don't know what the truth of the matter is, except that Tesla did leave. And I'm going to take this thing off.
I understand. Heavy is the head that wears
Heavy
the
is the crown. But so there's that conflict. And then if you follow it further, there's more conflict because Edison, let me see if I can get this right. Edison was using one form of current. Tesla used a different AC and DC, right? And so Tesla's, and I think it was alternating current, was actually safer and didn't tend to burn things down the way Edison's direct current generators would, as New York can attest to. And so there was a lot of conflict over that, and Edison didn't like losing face. And I think that's ultimately why he pushed Tesla aside, because Tesla was embarrassing him. And Tesla also wanted to offer electricity to the world for free. Wireless and free. No
Yes.
kidding.
No, I remember reading that, all of
Yeah.
the like globes and lights that just sort of travel. I
Oh, yeah.
never quite figured out how he did that, but I'm
Um,
going a little bit far afield, I think.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I can't quite figure out how he did all the stuff he did either, but that's okay.
Grateful for it.
Yeah.
All right. Um, are people who touch your book going to be possessed by demons or
I don't
attacked by
think so.
monsters?
I don't think so. I don't think the book will attack them either. I mean, it may, but I don't think so.
Yet, I do know that books do attack characters in your book.
They
Like,
do.
so is that some way of telling people that they really shouldn't read?
No. They should just be careful what they read. Or maybe, just watch out if it starts shooting things at you,
The amount of invention in this is enviable. Like I said from the jump, it was like getting thrown into a pool of cold water. There's so much imagination and so many just rules that I didn't that I assumed someone else had the playbook for. And so then I of course messaged you and I'm like, is there stuff that I need to know before I jump into this? Is this a genre thing? And then you said that all the world building was yours.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this is something that I feel like I've been preparing for my whole life in terms of learning how to world build. I learned from some of the best, Bradbury and Shirley Jackson is really good at world building too, although hers
Oh
are not,
yes.
but
Shirley Jackson has that thing though where it could be supernatural or it could just be
yeah, yeah, yeah,
psychosis.
yeah, yeah. And that's something that I appreciate about her, because I think a lot of when I'm writing horror, I kind of go that direction too. Well, except in the cases where there actually are monsters. But even then, I mean, I like exploring, I like taking things that are kind of normal and then kind of twisting them around just a little bit. And I think most horror writers kind of like fiddle around with the normal, trying to find the not so normal about them. That's what makes it horror, right? But with this, I mean, I was kind of building from scratch, and I learned from other writers who I love and who I respect that when you're building something like this, you need to make your rules. And so that's where the rule book comes in. It's like you got to have rules for everything. You've got to make sure that it makes sense, even if it's something that's not a rule in the real world. Okay, so like in our real world, we don't have ghosts who come back and go to work, right?
Yes.
But yeah, so there has to be a reason why she does it that's logical, or and everything that she does, it has to kind of make sense. I know you and I were talking about how does she tie, and I'm like, well,
Yes.
she wills herself to be solid enough to tie. And it's interesting because I had some of my approach to her, I felt a little challenged about over the summer, because I got into this series called the Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries by Stuart Jaffe. And Stuart is just a great guy. Oh my gosh, he's so terrific. And he has a ghost that's a main character, who's a detective. And in his world, it hurts for Max, or not Max, it hurts for his ghost detective to touch reality. It causes him pain. In my world, it doesn't. So, you have to make as an author, when you're building these kind of things, you have to have your rules, and you have to stick with them, and you have to know why. Why is she able to do this? Well, force of will. How can she live in both the inside and the outside? The inside is the real world, the outside is the spectral world. How can she cross between both? Because she chose to, because she has that option.
Now, do you have these rules written down, or are they just in your head and you know what they are and what the exceptions are?
I've got some of them written down. I'll be honest, with this book, I started late writing things down in a notebook. I have a notebook. I actually have a Children of Menlo Park notebook, and I wish I'd pulled it out because it's kind of cool. But it has, I do lots of things with my notebooks. I take notes. So I have all the children's names and powers written in it. I've got some of the rules when I would come up with them, just so I wouldn't forget. Sometimes I forgot anyway, I'll be really honest.
That's what
I-
revision's for.
yeah, that's what editors and revision are for, to make you remember, oh yeah, I just said that on this page. I paste in pictures. I have this very tactile thing going on with the book. So there's like pictures I found on the internet, and I pasted them into the notebook, and things like that. But yeah, the rules, I think some of them are written down. I don't think all of them are written down. And I think some of them I'm still learning. So there's still things to learn.
One of the things that I like about your writing process in general, which I again credit with teaching me how to write a book, is that you, and you told me, you essentially wrote motivational statements and word goals onto like the mirror in your bathroom,
Mm.
as well as I know that you did hashtag Children of Menlo Park complete with your word count every morning.
Yeah.
And so without telling people that you were necessarily writing a book,
Right.
it was just a way of, and this is one of the things that I found useful because I started doing hashtag dentist, was that like that way those in the know could keep up with you, and
Right.
that you also were held accountable by people. But then also the hashtag itself is so vague that you don't feel like everybody everywhere is going to hear that you're doing this impossible dream before you get it done.
Right. And I mean, at first, that's really what I was really just doing it for accountability for me. And then I'm like, well, I'll just I originally called it super secret. I think I called it the super secret writing project, something like that.
Right. I remember
And
that, which
and
is not vague, by the way. But
it's not vague enough, but at the time it's like, okay, so people know I write anyway. So I'll just throw this up here, and it's for me. And it's for me to be accountable, and also, if this turns into something, then I can also, I'll be really honest. There was a sneaky part of me going, well, if this gets going far enough, I can start using it for promotional material too.
oh
Excuse me.
yeah,
I had no
I did the same.
idea. I had no idea that, one, that people were going to pay that much attention to it. It's shocked me how many, not just you, Benji, but a whole bunch of other folks have come to me and gone, wow, I was really inspired because of what you did. And I'm like, well, this is okay. I'm glad. Oh my gosh. And, you know, um, it was just a way of me recording and keeping myself honest and forcing myself to write, even on the days when I wrote 300 words and felt like the world was going to end because I couldn't write anymore. It made me see, okay, well, at least you put some words on the paper. And now I'm doing the same thing with Kudzu Ridge, and it
But
helped.
what is Kudzu Ridge?
Oh, Kudzu Ridge is my second novel. It is not a Kate and Shadow novel. Y'all are gonna have to wait for that. What happened was, during the early edits of Children, when I began to realize that it was going to be a large project to edit this thing, I started writing After I sent it to John, I think the second time, I started writing Kudzu Ridge. More than anything, to give myself something to do besides continuing to go back and forth to the email going, is it done? Has he, I was driving myself crazy. So I started writing
Yes.
this, and it originally started as a piece of flash fiction for the 500.
For the 500.
Yeah. And I had been kind of jiggling around with the idea of a sentient kudzu monster for a while. So yeah, so I'm like, well, it would be in North Georgia and there would be magic involved. So yeah, so I wrote that, and then I turned that into first pages. That was what, 2018, I think.
Yeah.
It is 2018. Yeah.
The
Yeah, that was
same
that was
year of
fun.
Zach and
I
Weight of
got,
Ashes, I believe.
yeah, I think so. And got a really positive response, which I was thrilled about, because I was really nervous about if people were going to think it was silly or not. And apparently a lot of folks liked it. So, and then Daryl, once again, who is in the participants and
Yes.
encourages me
Daryl
in a
Grizzle.
lot of ways. By the way, Daryl's an excellent author too, guys.
Yes, I await Daryl's book. Daryl's book had me excited almost from the jump when he had it read at first pages as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. He needs to finish that book because I want to read it.
Yes, me too.
But so Daryl was like, well, you should make this into something bigger. And so I'm like, well, challenge accepted. So I've got about I think almost 45,000 words. I've been rewriting
Yeah, I
it.
thought you were at 35,000 like last week or so, but I guess.
Yeah. Well, it was about 40,000, and I've added some. I've had a good couple of weeks. And so my goal, and I've actually got it, I wish I could turn this around, because I've actually started putting goals back up on the wall again. I don't have a mirror.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't have my big mirror anymore. So I'm like, well, I've got sticky notes. So I've got this great big sticky note on the wall, and I have a goal of 60,000 words by November 30th. We'll see if it happens. A lot depends
Yes.
on if I can sit my butt down and actually do what I need to do.
We do have some questions from the audience that I'm going to get to, but first, and also you can find them if you want. I know that you can because you and I are both old hat at this.
Yeah.
But before I do that, I want to tell you that the reason that so many people were paying attention is because you are loved and inspiring.
Oh.
And the way that you're supportive of everybody else, you deserve back tenfold.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, all of the writer folks that I know, I mean, I've met some pretty awesome people during all of this, and you know, and of course, you were right there at the beginning when I went that first day at Broadleaf, and I walked in for the first time and didn't know anybody, and there you are, and we're like laughing like within the first hour. Oh my gosh! I'm like, we were giggling like we'd known each other like forever, right? Yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, my nature to like put people at ease is to make myself as ridiculous as possible, so that way everybody's having at least a good time, or that everybody knows that no topic is off limits with me.
Right. And you know, and you know that I had this huge ridiculous streak inside of me too. So both of us being
I
ridiculous.
discovered that. Yes. So here's the thing. Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Zach says that I excel at being ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's okay, because you know what? I love that ridiculousness.
It's a power.
It
if
is
you know how to use it.
It is an absolute superpower. And I mean, without folks like you, without folks like all my other friends that I have met through this journey, I wouldn't have succeeded. And I feel like I should cheer everybody else on, because I mean, I got this glorious gift and encouragement and love, and I want everybody to have this. You know, it's it's nothing more than I just want to see people succeed and find their place. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I just love encouraging and cheering everybody on, because the
Yeah,
journey is fun.
that's one of the things that I appreciate as well. It's because it also helps. It also helps in your process to turn the internal skepticism and doubt. It helps you to like re-aim that somewhere
Oh,
else. Like, not that we don't still feel the doubt and such. It's just that you feel less alone. Like, this process, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, can be very, very lonely.
yeah.
And to let other people know and to carry other people with you allows you to just feel less, well, it it makes the impossible seem likely,
Oh,
and it
oh yeah.
makes art feel tangible. And again, a 50,000 word book is just 150 words a day
Yeah,
or
exactly.
so. And if we all know to like just break that down, then we can all do this. Lynn Hansen has a question.
Okay.
Can you tell us a bit about how you connected with your publisher?
Oh, definitely. By the way, hey, Lynn. For those of you who don't know Lynn Hansen, she's an amazing artist. I'm
Like,
not
totally amazing,
kidding.
y'all.
Oh my gosh.
Book
So,
covers, book covers, book covers.
oh,
We'll
definitely.
get into your book cover in a moment, but yes.
So the question was, how did I get connected with my publisher? So my publisher is Falstaff Books. The guy who owns it is a guy named John Hartness. He's located in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the way I met him is kind of, I kind of bumbled into it, I'll be honest. So I started going after my first broadleaf, and I started writing. I decided that it would be fun to start volunteering and finding ways to go to some of the local nerd conventions. And I happened to make friends with some folks who called me and said, hey, you want free tickets to Jordan Con that particular year? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. And my secret goal was not just to go to con to have fun. It's like, this is going to be business. I'm going to see what kind of publishers are at this nerd convention. So I went to Jordan Con, and I walked into the vendors hall. And for those of you who know nerd conventions, there's always a vendors hall, and there's always all kinds of stuff. And sometimes the booksellers are in there too. Sometimes they're separate, sometimes they're not. This time he was in the vendors hall. And at that point, John had only been, and Falstaff Books had really been going only about a year, maybe two. So I walk up to his table, and mostly I walked up because I was curious. There was this table, and it was filled with books, and this guy behind it was about 6 foot tall and looked like a biker. I'm not kidding. He looks like
Oh,
a
I've seen him.
classic biker dude, right? Long hair, the beard, the wrestling t-shirt. I think he was wearing one that day, wearing a wrestling t-shirt that day. And he looked like he had just stepped off his Harley. And so I walk up, and the first thing he asked me was, what do you like to read? And I looked at all his books, and I'm like, well, pretty much all of this. And then we talked for another hour, at least according to his story. I don't remember how long it was, because I was so entranced and so involved with trying to pick his brain to find out, how do I do this? And so he said at the end of the conversation, when you finish the book, send it to me.
Yes.
And I took his card, and then he started harassing me
And harassing your friends.
and harassing my friends to harass me. Lynn Hansen knows about this.
Wait a second. I know who Lynn Hansen's married to. She knew
Yes.
this story.
Yes, she did. So her husband ends up harassing me and saying, so when John said hello, and when are you sending the manuscript? And I'm like, I still got to work on it. I was very, very nervous
Yes.
about sending it. And once again, Daryl steps up to the plate, as he does, because he is one of my dearest friends in the
He's
whole
fantastic.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so great. And he's like, just send the damn book. And I'm like, yes, sir. And I did it.
And there's a lot of advice that you just offered to people, like just through your own process, which is that, like, networking, when you hear the phrase, it sounds like this cold, dry, boring ass stuff. But what you're really doing is connecting with people who are as interested in the things that you're interested in, and just sort of making friendships. It doesn't have to be transactional. Like, honestly, if you go into these conferences like Broadleaf or anything, and just sort of connect and realize that we all have our own insecurities, and that we all are attempting to grab some brass ring that remains elusive no matter where you are in your process, and that there's just joy in the work.
Absolutely. It's a journey.
Then all of these people become a whole lot less intimidating.
Oh yeah, we're all on a journey. They're just on a different part of the journey. They're farther ahead.
Oh, how are John's arms, by the way?
Pardon?
How are John's arms, by the way?
They
I forgot to ask.
They are much better. He had a terrible fall about 4 weeks ago now. It was right after the launch.
I'm just glad to know that he's doing better. I didn't know if he was here or not, but I just wanted I wanted him to know that we're all caring about him.
Oh yeah, he's doing much better. He basically, for those who don't know, he was at another outdoor sales convention and basically stepped off of a sidewalk and fell and broke both of his arms. Luckily, they were like fractured in a way that the bones didn't move. So he's actually healing very nicely in most of the movement in his arms and hands and everything. But he's doing much better. Right. He just finished his 8th Quincy Harker novel. 8. Oh my God.
I intend to maybe finish 8 books before I die. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. But he has just finished this series this past week. He was afraid he wasn't going to make it because it's due for release, I think, next month. So the fact that he was able to finish it is just like, I'm just so glad he didn't hurt himself worse, because he could have killed himself. He really could.
I'm glad he didn't hurt himself worse, because otherwise he would have to type out a book like The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. But did you know that book? That's the book where somebody transcribed one letter at a time while the guy essentially blinked out how to type. He had locked-in syndrome. He had locked-in syndrome, and he wrote a memoir one letter at a time using his eye.
Holy crap.
And an assistant. Yeah, they turned it into a movie. It's amazing. If you've never read it,
I need to read this.
Yes. Shout out also to like other authors that I know you like Sean Hamill and Michael McDowell. If anyone has, I just couldn't see having an event with you and not mentioning Michael McDowell. So that's just me holding up the tradition.
Oh, definitely. We have to mention him. And of course, I got lucky a couple months ago and got to read Michael McDowell's story for Pseudopod. So you guys need to go check that out. It's really kind of cool.
The Pseudopod podcast, which is like all recordings. It's from Alex Hoflick. I never know if I'm saying his name right.
I never know either. I just kind of say, hi, Alex, and I'm afraid to say his last name because I'm afraid I'm going to botch it and embarrass myself. But we love you guys anyway. They just got
Oh,
some HWA nomination, I think, for a Stoker Award. I think that's right. I don't know. I was reading this afternoon and I was kind of in a sleepy haze. I'm so excited about that anyway. So
Don Major had a question. I have a question as well that relates to Don Major's question,
okay.
which is just essentially that who designed your book cover? Because that thing is beautiful. Do you have a copy of it that you can hold up? Oh my gosh, I never let you read from the book. What am I
That's
thinking?
okay. That's okay. We're having fun. I'm going to close my video for just a second. And when I come back,
No,
I'll
it's
have,
fine. I'll sing or something. I'll just sort of like,
okay. Well, I would loan you
all
my
right.
ukulele, but you know.
No, it's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, while she's away, we are sneaking in live from New York, Miss Jennifer Nettles from the actual stage production of Waitress, who's here to surprise Jessica Nettles with something thoroughly amazing. Okay, I'm completely kidding. I'm just sort of stalling for time. Oh, she's back. Look.
I'm back. I'm back. So for those of you who haven't seen this beautiful cover, this is my beautiful cover. I wish, oh gosh. So the person who designed this cover, her name is Natanya Barron. She designs covers for Falstaff books, has designed many covers, including some of Darren Kennedy's covers. She's also an author in her own right, and has a wonderful Arthurian series that is published through Falstaff. So y'all need to check her out. She is totally amazing, and I love Natanya. And probably when I get to see her again, which hopefully will be in the next year or so, I'm probably just going to just hug her until she can't be hugged anymore, because I'm just so happy with my cover. I like pretty much every stage of this book. Every time something new happened from the publisher, I cried, and I cried over this too. So
Yes. Don't hug her too tightly. We need her to produce more book covers.
absolutely.
And more books. Yes. Daryl wonders how many ghost cats are in the novel, and did you talk to ghost cats as you wrote it?
Okay, so there are no ghost cats in this novel. However, there's always the chance that there will be ghost cats in the future. I have not spoken to any ghost cats recently, because Ninja kind of keeps them away. He's jealous. Daryl, you know how jealous Ninja is. So he's even jealous of the ghost cats. But there is a possibility that perhaps there will be ghost cats, because I'm still thinking that maybe the second Kate and Shadow novel will happen, at least have a few scenes in the Savannah, Georgia area. And we all know how haunted Savannah is. And we all know that there's cool stuff going on. And there's this dude called Don the Knife, who you guys will meet in this book.
Oh, yes, I got to don the knife.
Got to Don the Knife, yes.
I got to don the knife, yes.
Don is special, and the knives he makes are pretty amazing. And
oh yes,
he's based on a real amazing person who really is from Savannah, and that's my dad, who really does make knives, and who really is a little crazy, and who grew up in Savannah. So yeah.
I love that I mentioned ghost cats, and all of a sudden my allergies started to act up. That's how allergic to cats I am.
Yeah, you got ghost cats, man. You better watch that.
Yes. I am unsure whether to ask you in the brief time that we have left for your elevator pitch for the book, or if you have a favorite sentence or paragraph that you would like to read.
Okay, so
I didn't tell you to prepare anything, so I didn't
prepare anything, but elevator pitch is basically magical children, American icons, elder gods, and a mixture between the Wild Wild West and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I didn't think of. John thought of that. That was really pretty cool.
Yes.
So
And it
yeah,
traverses all of America during a very specific period of time.
yes, it does. It does. We go from Chicago to Menlo Park to we get to go to Colorado Springs. I love Colorado Springs. I can't wait for you to go to Colorado Springs, Benji. Oh my gosh, it's exciting. There's going to be some cool things there.
I really look forward to it.
Yeah.
I also look forward to the end of the book, which I know takes place in a very specific location.
Yes, Niagara Falls.
Yes.
I'm
I believe it was
obsessed.
during the revisions where you're like, just get me to Niagara Falls, just get me to Niagara Falls. I think that was something you used to say to me on a time.
Oh, Dawn asked US or Canada side. Actually,
Yes.
yes. I can't tell you any more than that. But you will get to see a lot of the falls and some places that we don't talk about a lot, but are really there. And doing the research, I had never wanted to go to Niagara Falls until I wrote this book.
Oh,
And
it's
so
amazing.
it is. It's incredible. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
have webcams, and I was freaking out because I'm like, okay, so I've seen these pictures, and I actually looked up postcards so I could see what it looked like during the time period. It's really interesting. They actually have a gift shop that has been there since the early 1800s. No kidding. It's so crazy.
Yes.
But yeah, I started watching the webcams, and I think I spent like 3 weeks going to the webcams every day, trying to feel I would sit there going, I'm feeling Niagara Falls. I'm feeling what it's like. I'm trying to see what it looks like. And, so now I'm like, one day I am going to Niagara Falls, and I am going to stay there and just, spend some time there. There's actually a memorial for Mr. Tesla too there, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
The one time that I went to Niagara Falls was like right after I was in the 5th grade, and my only real experience with it prior to that was Superman 2, where a little boy is like holding on to the bar and then letting it go.
Oh God.
And
yeah.
so I was in the 5th grade, and I was teeny tiny, and I kept thinking I was going to fall into the falls, but unfortunately for everyone else, I survived.
You survived. Now we have to deal with this, man. No,
Yes.
but
So when can we expect more Cade and Shadow?
well, I'm finishing. My goal is to finish up a draft of Kudzu Ridge, hopefully by January. That's what I'm shooting for. Then I'm going to go ahead and send it. I'm going to edit it because nobody sends it for, even though this is like the 2nd or 3rd draft. I'm going to do one more draft where I edit and polish it and make sure I haven't made a fool of myself, and send it to John and see what he thinks. And then I'm going to send plans at that point for book 2 and 3. Once that's in the email and off in the ether to wait for John, I'm going to start the second Cade and Shadow book, and hopefully get that going. I've got another series that I really am interested in starting, but it's going to be kind of like a little different because the first book is going to be a series of short stories, and it's going to be a series of short stories about 3 witches, which you know about.
The sisters, right? Yes.
Stories. Yeah, the sisters.
Oh yeah, the stories are great.
So I've got to write. I want to write. Let's see. I've got 2. I need 4 more of those stories to make it a full book, I think. And I've got an idea of where they're going. And so, yeah, and they're kind of like, they're my stopgap in case I get to a point where I need to breathe for a minute and just fiddle around. So, which is what I do with short stories.
I like that.
They're my stopgap. Yeah.
Well, as we close down, which we are at the end of, I want to say that as someone who has befriended you, as someone who has read you, as someone who has worked with you on project after project, and as someone who has published you before, that I am exceedingly proud of you
Thank
all
you.
the time. I'm so grateful for this for you, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday at 1 p.m. at Foxtail in Woodstock, where
Absolutely.
everyone can come and buy copies of this book, which they awfully should. That doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
That's
Which
okay.
they definitely should. Forgive me, I appear to have had a stroke. Um, um,
All right.
I love you so much, and I
Love you.
thank everybody for being here. And is there anything that you would like to close on?
Um, just basically, if you're thinking about doing this kind of joining this craziness, getting on the journey, or you've had some hesitation because you're afraid, stop being afraid. We're all here for you. Get involved with your community and write the damn book.
And even if you're afraid, don't let that stop you.
Let it fuel you.
All you have to do is live and make life into what you want it to be. And it's amazing.
Absolutely.
And because you did that, and because you taught me how to do that, I'm forever grateful. So thank you all. And this is very moving. And have a good night. Thank you.